best psychological thrillers work because we understand why the characters act the way they do. And that is why the 1996 thriller Fear with Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon is so intensely frightening. The story begins with Nicole Walker, played by Reese Witherspoon, in a sparkling performance. She has just lived in Seattle with her father and his new wife, played by William Peterson and Amy Brenneman, and their young son. And she's got friends, you know, she's got some resentment, but she's just a normal 16-year-old teenager. One day at a rave, she meets this handsome young man named David McCall, played by Mark Wahlberg. He sweeps her off her feet. He's kind, he's sweet, he's sensitive, he respects her. She falls for him hook, line, and sinker, and he for her. Problems begin when she realizes that he's got a jealous streak. And when she tries to break it off, things get very complicated very quickly. And what I like about this movie is that it understands these characters through and through. This screenplay by Christopher Crowe is very well written. These characters feel real, and they change their minds. They have, you know, doubts, and they act in ways we understand why they act. For example, the mother, the new stepmother, she knows what's going on, but she acts in a way that she wants to please, you know, her new stepdaughter. So that may cloud her judgment. Plus, she also thinks that going along with it may prevent things from getting worse, and she has her reasons for doing so. Of course, the dad's, you know, creeped out by this guy, and for good reason. But, you know, it's also because he's a father and he's protective of his young daughter. And this film is very violent. It's very intense, and it's very, very scary. And what I was starting to talk about this movie. First time I saw this movie, I was actually right here. And we had this like older TV. It was at like 1 a.m. I had, you know, big headphones on, and about an hour into this movie, I was losing it. I was like, oh god! Like, I literally was like almost screaming. And we had just gotten 2 new dogs, and they heard me, and they started whining and howling. And then they woke up my parents, and my dad comes downstairs, just bleary-eyed, like, what the hell is going on? I'm like, shh, shh, shh. And as the end credits finally started to roll, I sank back into my seat. I was literally shaking. I was drenched in sweat, and literally every muscle in my body was shaking because it is that scary. Because these are real, these feel like real people who make real decisions, good and bad, based, you know, on their personalities, and, you know, it understands, you know, how people think, and it's played very realistic. There are no cheap shocks. This movie is very, very scary because it's smart.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about this movie. That's what I think makes it so unbelievably terrifying. And to this day, I can't watch this movie without getting freaked out to that level. And it is just an absolutely terrifying movie.
So, how many stars?
Oh, absolutely. It's 4 out of 4. I mean, there's nothing else that has scared me that bad.
Okay, wow, interesting. Okay, you know, I remember seeing this film as a teenager. I have seen it at least one time since, and it definitely stood up. Seeing it later in life, I thought of it as a really good thriller, and right 3.5 stars for me. I thought everything was well done and well executed. And however, you know, so you mentioned a personal story. I'll bring in a personal story. I recently had a younger female relative who she just got out of a very serious abusive relationship. Not quite to that degree, but an abusive relationship nonetheless. And we were just talking movies, and I asked her what her favorite movie is, and she said Fear, and asked me if I had seen it, and that shocked me.
Yeah,
because I'm like, wouldn't that trigger some bad memories in you? That's your favorite film. I was really, and what she told me was she said so much of what happens in that movie was mirrored warning signs and things that happened that had she seen it, she felt like it was a good movie as a warning.
Right.
Not because she thought it was like the best movie of all time, but because she felt like it could serve as a real warning for young women. Both on the seductive, the way he seduces her, and then also...
And he knows exactly how to do that.
Yes.
And, it doesn't go for, cheap shocks. And, I mean, of course it follows the formula with the violent climax. Of course it does. But, I mean, that's part of how these movies work. And... cinematically and from a storytelling perspective, this movie is all building up to something, and you can't, have it. I mean, realistically speaking, it may not end up like that, but you have to. It's building up to something, and you have to have a payoff.
Yeah.
And so, in that way, it works. And plus, the direction by James Foley is very good. I mean, he knows, like you said, it's very realistic how he's able to sweet talk her and manipulate her, and how she dumps him, then she goes back, and then how her, like I said, her stepmother, she knows this guy's kind of bad news, but it's like she'd go and see him without us, in spite of that we know, and she really wants to make a good impression on her stepdaughter. She's kind of looking the other way a little bit, and the dad, he's trying to get through to her and the best he can. I mean, he's not some superhero. He's not, a criminal psychologist. He does the best he can. And so, and that scene outside the school parking lot between the two of them, that was unbelievably intense, because you've got these two guys who are so evenly matched, and he knows exactly how to stick it in there and twist it. And, and the parents, they do discuss what's going on with their daughter. And they, think about it and consider everything that's going on. And then this is drama between, Reese Witherspoon's character and, her best friend, played by Alyssa Milano. That's very well written too. How she's more easily seduced, and it goes way farther with her, and that creates some drama between them. So you've got a lot of very interesting and believable people in this thriller genre, and they're so well written and well acted that it really elevates this formula too. Of course, I've never held a movie back because it followed a formula. I mean, they're all formulas. Right. It's based on what the director chooses to do with them. Even if they follow it very, very closely, if the screenplay and the acting and the direction are top notch, it can make it just as terrifying as something groundbreaking. Right.
Right. Well, even with it, like you said, leading up to the obvious, violent confrontation. I mean, sadly, this is happening. These situations, these type of relationships, often end in a violent confrontation.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, it is kind of Hollywoodized, with
drawn out for
exactly. But you can't expect a movie like this to be like a documentary.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mentioned that my cousin, she saw it after these were, and I wouldn't recommend that because I feel like that could trigger things. But I'm going to make a rare recommendation for this film to be shown to not young girls but teenage girls.
Yeah,
beginning a relationship, even though the material
is very, very rough.
Yeah, it's very
at times.
It's very rough. It's a warning because I can remember as a kid, it was the things that scared me that stuck with me. The lessons that I learned.
And it's not. It wouldn't be just like a tough love thing. No, it's like this is how how you learning about this stuff from like your teachers and in textbooks is very different
Right.
than seeing it actually dramatized and played out.
Yeah.
And so in that respect, you mentioned a good point. This movie is rated R, and you know there is some rough stuff, you know, like graphic drug use and some sex and you know intense violence. But at the same time, you know, I think you really do make a good point. I'm not sure that an R rating is appropriate. I think it is a good movie for teenagers. And because it shows them how this stuff can work and the consequences for it, you know. So yeah, it's a great thriller, but it's also a great movie, and it's a smart movie.
Yes.
So I highly recommend this movie. Just be warned, it's going to scare the living hell out of you, and I say that with compliments.